Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Grateful Together podcast. I am so grateful that you have tuned in today. I first want to just say, first and foremost, thank you to every person who listens, shares, comment, people who have subscribed to YouTube, who felt led to join this ministry. I am super thankful of each and every one of your support. It means the world to me. And I just want to give you your props and say thank you so much for continuing this journey with me. Thank you for participating, commenting, sharing. I see it all. I notice it all. And I just want to say thank you because it does not go unnoticed. And I definitely want to just get into this episode. So let's dive right into it. So as you can see, the title of this episode is The Birthing. Push. You are in your final days. So push for me stands for pray until something happens. So I'm not sure where you're at in life right now, but I know as for me, and like I've told you guys, I've been completely honest with you from the time I've left my job up until today, up until this very moment. It has been hard. The warfare has been hard. I've been getting attacked left and right. Health-wise, financially, mentally, I've been weighed down. I've been tired. And so I was sitting here the other night and I started thinking about how I felt when I was pregnant with my son, right? And for all my mothers on here, or even if you're not a mother, you've been around women or men, you've been around people who have been pregnant. And sometimes you see how hard it is for that mother to carry that child. And sometimes there are some people who's carrying more than one child. So it's hard to carry that thing. You know, a child is, oh my God, it's heavy. And I was thankful. For me, I didn't show until about the last hours of my pregnancy. I went for a while without sharing with too many people. I was pregnant and I was in rooms with people who couldn't even tell I was pregnant. I remember literally being at my baby shower and a lady came up to me and was like, well, who's the mom? Who's pregnant? And I was like, girl, I looked at her. Girl, you don't see the stomach? What? Like, not you at my baby shower, asking me who the mama is. Like, what? She was a guest of one of my family members, but I was just like, I said, girl, it's me. And she was like, oh my God, I didn't know. And I was just like, girl, I don't know how you can't tell. Like, at this point, I had my baby shower in February, and then I had Noah in March. So I was very much, and it was like I just kind of shot up overnight because I didn't really start showing until like January-ish. I mean, I was looking at a picture of me when I was 6 or 7 months, and I had on one of my little two-piece outfits, and one of them, my stomach was barely poking out. Like, it was rounded, but you couldn't just look at me and be like, dang, she's 6 months pregnant. And I remember even like going to a few doctor's appointments, and my son's father was like, are you sure you're pregnant? Because it don't look like you're pregnant. And I wanted to bump him upside the head because, boy, what? Get out my face. Anybody knows. Nobody, don't come to me talking about, are you pregnant? You don't look pregnant. I feel very much pregnant. I can tell I'm pregnant, whether you see it on the outside. And that's a word in itself, because sometimes you know what you're carrying, but people around you don't see it. And because they don't see what you're carrying, because it's not revealed to them, they discount your pregnancy. They discount how far you've come in this journey. Pregnancy is not just sometimes 9 months. Sometimes it goes past 9 months. I remember I ended up being induced in my labor. And it's so crazy because you're going to birth something. Sometimes you're not going to birth it on that day. Sometimes you may birth it early, but not prematurely. Sometimes we may feel like or call a pregnancy premature because the baby hasn't fully developed, but that baby was here at the right point at the right time. Sometimes we go past our due dates because it's not time yet for you to birth that child. And I know it's long, and I know it gets hard because you have to continuously carry it. And I remember going into a doctor's appointment, a regular scheduled checkup. I had been begging for them to induce my labor at this point up until the end of February because I was over it. I was sick throughout the whole 9 months. I know from the day I conceived, I was sick as a dog. I wasn't 100% sure that I was pregnant. I even thought I had COVID or I was pregnant. But I had already knew, like, after like it happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. But I kind of just didn't accept it. And I ended up going to take a test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And the crazy thing about it is, according to like my cycle, or my calendar, I was only like supposed to be 3 weeks. So that kind of scared me because I'm like, well, why are these lines? Like instantly I took the test and it showed up. It wasn't faint. I didn't have to hold it to the light. It was very clear. The lines were very dark. I still have my test to this day, in my baby's book. But I look at those all the time and I'm reminded of how freaked out I was, how crazy that, I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure. And all the signs was there, but I wasn't obviously showing. And I wasn't expecting to be pregnant. But as I told you guys before, if you've listened to the podcast and you followed me, you know that God prepared me in such a major way. That was right when the pandemic started. And I did not take a loss at all financially. I was obedient. God told me to save my money. I didn't understand why, but I ended up diligently saving, and it blessed me because I ended up being able to get FMLA, and I was out of work a lot because I was sick as a dog. I went up against a bunch of nurses and a bunch of the OBGYNs because they felt like, oh, you're not just going to sit at home. There's nothing wrong with you. And I had to literally prove a point. First of all, I work from home, so I don't have to just sit at home. I work from home, but I cannot work when I'm sitting here consistently not able to sit up during the day, when I'm consistently in pain, when I'm consistently not keeping down my food for lack of better words. Like literally, I can't tell you how many times where I've been out in public. Like I remember when I first went to go get the ultrasound to figure out what my son was, I went out to breakfast with my mom and I ended up getting in the car and I had to wait because I was like, wait, I got to throw up. And I remember like just being scared of going out because I couldn't, anybody knows you can't control morning sickness. So I had to let that lady know, first of all, girl, I don't know what you used to, but I ain't joking. And you can see the records from my every appointment, how I've been in here just cutting up in the doctor's office. Like every time I went to the OBGYN, it was never a good report. There was always something going crazy. That's just how it was. So I had to show her the facts, okay, about what I was carrying and how much weight the carrying of that child, of my son, bared on me. And like I told you guys before, I ended up being hospitalized, being on IVs because I was dehydrated. I couldn't keep down water. That's how bad it was. I couldn't keep fluids in my body. I lost so much weight. I remember this guy who used to come work on my car. He was like, oh, you look good. You done lost some weight. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I lost weight, but it wasn't, on purpose. It's because I can't keep nothing down. I can't eat. But in my mind, I just told him, I was like, okay, thank you. Like, and then he was like, he kept asking like, what's different about you? And I ended up telling him like, I'm pregnant. And he was like, what? You don't look it. How far are you? And I was like, oh, I'm 5 months. And he was like, no, you can't be 5 months. You don't even have a belly. And I was like, well, yeah, I am. And then 6 months came around and it was the same thing. Like I literally just shot up overnight. And I was like, where did this balloon come from? But I was grateful because I remember like, I didn't want to get, I don't know. I just didn't want my pregnancy to be one of those things where I gained a bunch of weight and I couldn't keep it off, And so I remember praying a long time ago, like when I got pregnant, I said, Lord, I don't want to carry this. I'm already iffy about my weight. I've always been that way. And that's just a picture of what other people painted of me. But I'm just thankful because now that I'm out of going through those 9 months, I can see the blessing in those 9 months. I can go back to each month and be thankful for each and everything, how it played out, how it worked out. But in that thing, while I was carrying my son, I was not happy. I was not looking at it as a blessing. I regretted it every day. I cried every day. Being humble and open with you guys, I literally, up until the 5th month, I contemplated abortion a lot of times. I was very close to aborting my son. And I don't even believe in abortion because I already know that children are a blessing from God no matter how they get here. And the enemy was so close to me, reminding me that, oh, you birthed something prematurely, you birthed something out of sin, And that weighed on me the whole pregnancy. I felt convicted the whole time. I felt ashamed the whole time. And then you had other voices outside adding on to that. But the Lord reminded me that what the enemy intended for evil, I intend for good. And till this day, I consistently see the good of what my son carries and what he brings to my life. Because if my son was not here, there's a lot of things that I would still be doing that wouldn't be prospering me. There's a lot of mindsets or things that I wouldn't be able to mature in had I not grew up faster. I'm not going to say I was immature or childish, but there were some areas where I had to be vigilant and get serious. When I found out I was pregnant with my son, couple months, like as soon as I had him, because I didn't want to go through therapy while I was pregnant because I knew it was going to be a lot. So as soon as I had him, I started enrolling myself in counseling. I went to counseling. I started writing everything down. I started looking at myself in the mirror, and I started working on the person I was, because I promised myself that I would not be that mother that couldn't carry the stewardship of mothership well. And am I perfect? No. Do I get upset with my son all the time? Yes, because he's 3-year-old who don't listen. He's 3 going on 33, okay? He thinks he is alpha and omega. He thinks he's all-knowing, and he knows. But he's just a little baby, okay? He's just a little baby. But I said all that to say, you never know what the weight of something is that you're carrying until you're out of that thing. It's hard to see the blessing in the bigger picture when you're in it, because when you're in it, it feels like the wilderness. When you're in it, you feel like, oh, I'm tired. I'm ready for this to be over. And what I had to remind myself was, when I was carrying my son, is that I can't keep walking through this thing expecting to just one day obviously jump to being 5 months to 9 months and then pushing him out. But I remembered that I had to go through it so that I can get what it is that God was trying to show me. I had to go through it so that I can remember today that when God was showing me how to carry my son and how to steward that pregnancy well, it felt like he had turned his back on me. It felt like I was being punished for something. It felt like it just felt wrong. It felt bad. And that weight carried down on me every day of my pregnancy. And anybody that knows me closely, who was around when I was pregnant, knew that. I carried it, and I didn't carry it well. I cried every day. I suffered 9 months of that. And even after I had my son, every time I went to the doctor, they was always, oh, we have to do a counseling session before you go, because, it's not looking good. Your test is like the little emotional test. It's not looking good. And I'm like, oh my God. And there was times where I literally was putting wrong answers, thinking that, okay, well, this is going to be all right. And it still came back. Like, nope. Even when after labor, I had to sit and do like a 30 minutes therapy session before I left the hospital, because that's how bad I was mentally. Okay. I'm being so honest with you guys. I was mentally just not there. And then even getting home, I just couldn't believe I had a son. I couldn't believe I went through that. But I will tell you the best part, and I tell anybody this, the best part of being pregnant was labor. And I know some people are like, no, girl, I love my pregnancy, but the labor was hard. But for me, and I remember talking to other people and getting their opinions about it, just trying to prepare, but you can never really prepare for pregnancy, delivery, because you never know how it's going to go. Like I said, I went to a regular routine checkup, and I ended up being induced. You guys, I was not prepared. I had my bag, but my bag was home because I wasn't prepared to stay. But that's how God is. God will interrupt your regular programming, your regular routine, to say, you know what, I'm going to do it this way. And if you're not prepared to deliver that thing, it's going to take you by surprise. If you're not prepared to push for your last time, you will miss it. You will be unprepared, and you will be panicking in the delivery room because you haven't properly prepared. And so as I was sitting in the room, I was thinking about, I ended up going to my doctor's appointment, and then they're like, oh, I want you to walk over to the hospital, and we want to monitor you for like the next hour or so, and then we're going to let you go. Because I had been begging them to induce me, because that's how bad my pregnancy was, you guys. And at this point, my baby he was good enough to come on out. I was like, just let him come on out. Come on out. Mama is done. I'm sending an eviction notice. It's time for you to get out. And so they wouldn't. And then it was always, I want to, but as much as I was hospitalized, as much as I was dehydrated, as much as I was sick, as much as I was just having a rough time, they saw through it, and they're like, we gotta keep it a little bit longer. And I was like, okay, whatever. So in my mind, I had already figured, okay, he's going to come on his due date or later or, whatever. So I go in there thinking I'm just going to go home. I had already had my mind up. I was like, oh, I'm going to go home and eat me a bowl of spaghetti. I'm going to finish watching Avengers, and I'm going to rest, right? We have our own plans, but God has his plans, okay? Because he knows the plans that are to prosper us and not harm us, to give us a future, okay? So I went in, And they ended up telling me, oh, we need you to go over to the hospital. We want to monitor. So I'm like, okay, I walk in there thinking I'm finna be monitored. And then I'm laying there on the table. Noah just starts to kick and roll. He's flipping. He's in there showing out. And like the doctors kept coming over like, are you okay? We hear the monitors going off. And I was like, yeah. I said, that's not my heart rate. That's not me. I said, that's Noah. Like, that's the baby. He's doing all that. And the lady was like, oh, I think he's ready to come out. Like, he's really having a tough time. Like, he's rotating and he's doing all these things. Like, Noah was like, and you could see my stomach. Like, he was just like kicking. You could see his footprint. It was crazy. I was uncomfortable. It was just a lot, okay? And I was like, this boy here, because every time I went to the doctor, it's like he knew. He would fight with them. He would hide from the monitor. He would rotate. When I used to be when I got hospitalized those times, he would just sit on my bladder and just, kick my bladder. And they thought it was funny. I'm like, it's not nothing funny about me having to get up and run to the bathroom every 2 seconds because he's kicking my bladder. There ain't nothing funny about that. Like, I'm already sitting down holding it in, scared that I'm going to pee. And I already have to pee every 2 minutes. So why is that funny? But I say this to say that be prepared, because you never know when God's going to show up and tell you to push that thing out. You may be in your 8th month, but you may give birth. And it's not prematurely. It's the right time. You may be in your 9th month, but you may just have hit your 9th month. And you may be already about to push that thing out before its due date. Or the expected due date. Don't be like me. Don't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to go home, eat spaghetti, and watch Avengers all day and sleep. No, the Lord said, no, you're going to go in that room. I'm finna admit you and you finna go into labor. And I was like, what? Technically, I was already in labor because I was already like 4 centimeters, but I didn't even know it. And so I ended up being admitted, and the lady came in and she was like, oh, we're going to go ahead and induce you. And I guess she was thinking that I was going to be jumping for joy, but I was like, what? Like, I wasn't expecting that. I said, because I've been asking you guys to induce me and I'm hungry. I didn't eat. I'm hungry. I'm tired of laying here. I want to go home. And she's like, oh, we can get you some broth. Girl, I don't want no broth. And then, the hospital, they have that nasty broth. I don't want that watered down broth. And then I was like, I don't have my hospital bag. Like, I don't have anything. Like, I'm just here. Literally, I was just there. And I ended up getting induced. And I remember thinking like it was going to be a long process, because everybody kept telling me, oh, we're going to induce you. But because we're inducing you, it's going to take a little longer than it normally would with regular inducing. If your water broke, it's not going to be as fast. I keep thinking, And then there was a lady in the room next to me. She had been in labor for 3 days and she had not given birth. I could see it on her face that she was just like in pain. She was just screaming and breathing through it. And I was like, oh my God. So at this point, I'm in the room like freaking out, because I'm like, I am not prepared for this. Like, I was not expecting to come in here and talk about birthing no child. Like, I was not prepared at all whatsoever. I wasn't ready. Y'all. I really wasn't ready. So whole time I'm trying to just breathe through it, because I'm like, okay, Lord, just guide me. I kept praying. I was like, Lord, you got this. Help me through it. Give me the right people. But I prayed when we started the process. I prayed through the process, and I prayed after the process. Just as praying through the whole time. And I'm super thankful, and I will always say this, I'm super thankful for the team that I had. One of the nurses the delivery nurse that I had, she literally got in the bed with me, y'all. Like, ain't no room in that bed for me and you. This lady got in there, stood in there, and like helped me. Like, I was just like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. Like, not you helping me, not you helping catch the baby. Like, it was crazy. But all in all, I say all the time, my pregnancy was the worst part of it, because it was, to me, like a wilderness. I had to go do that for 9 months. And it was every day. It wasn't, and they kept telling me, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. This is just the first trimester. And when the second trimester came, oh, you're going to get better. It never got better. I'm going to be real. And even up until a couple days after I gave birth, I was still having pregnancy symptoms. I was still sick. I was still going through it. And then my body was swelling up. The milk was producing. That hurted like I don't know what. It was just a lot. So I was just like, oh my God. But the best part about it to this day that I will always say is the labor. Pushing my son out and getting him into this world was the greatest thing that I have ever experienced. It was definitely a process. And it wasn't terrible. I did get an epidural, but the epidural didn't work, so I felt every contraction, and I thought my hand was gonna break because I was squeezing the rail really hard, but I made it through. Something that I thought I wasn't gonna be able to do by myself. I technically did it with the help of God. I got through it, and if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would, but I probably would do it different. When it comes to like the pregnancy part, because that was just a lot for me. It was a lot mentally, a lot physically. But I said all this to say, the labor that you're going to go through to deliver whatever God is pushing you to birth is going to be worth it. I know that you're in the growing pains right now. I know you're dilated right now. I know that you're going through those contractions right now. And it may feel like you're about to fall out. It may feel like you're about to puke that thing out and you're about to prematurely give birth. But God is the God that is going to let you birth it at his appointed time. Isaiah 60:22 says, at the appointed time, I will make it happen. So whenever you're expecting one thing, allow God to show up and do it in his timing. His timing is not your timing. You got to know that when it's time for you to deliver and labor in delivery to deliver this child, this thing that you're birthing, not necessarily your child, but whatever you're birthing, the new that you're birthing, God is doing so many new things. You have to perceive it. It's not going to look the way it did. And even with mothers who have more than one kid, I can guarantee you each child that they had a different pregnancy story. All pregnancies are different. I don't care, even if it's with the same person. Each pregnancy is not the same. Symptoms aren't the same. You may not have found out the same way you found out with your last child. You may didn't have these cravings or these symptoms and this and that. Every pregnancy is different. So when you birth something new, it's going to be different. It's going to look different. You may birth something right on its due date, or you may birth it a little bit after. You may birth it a little bit before. Either way, what you're laboring and what you're caring to deliver is going to be worth it. Don't let the enemy come in and whisper in your ear and make you abort the mission. Don't let him trick you into doing something you don't even believe in. Like I told you guys, I swear by this. You can ask the father of my son. I battled. You can ask anybody that was close to me in my pregnancy. I battled with abortion the whole time when it was able to be done. And up until that last hour, I still was like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm sorry. God gonna have to forgive me because I can't do this. I can't do it. I literally said that 1,000 times. I can't. Every day it was I can't do this. I can't do it. And I was trying to do it, but I couldn't because I couldn't wrap my mind around what God was doing. I couldn't wrap my mind around how this had came to me. Like I can't wrap my mind around how I'm going to get through this because I didn't know anything about being a mother. I didn't know anything about nurturing a child. I didn't know anything about going through labor, about going through delivery. I didn't know anything about that. So it scared me, and it scared me so bad that I almost forfeited the blessing that God intended for me. I look at my son to this day. He just turned 3 years old, and I'm so thankful for him. He's funny. He's loving. He's kind. He is such a blessing, and I'm reminded every single day of what I bared and what I labored and what I went through to carry him. And I look at his life and I say, you know what? Now I know why the enemy fought me so hard about you. Now I know why the enemy tried to trick me out of forfeiting your life. And that probably would have killed me if I would have really went through with an abortion. But you guys being real, I was 99.99999% sure I was going to abort. I don't believe in abortion, but if you've done it, it is what it is. I've been there. I literally have been in the car driving to the abortion clinic several times. God had to turn me around because I was that close to forfeiting and aborting the thing that was birthed, what I felt like was premature and out of sin. Obviously, it was out of sin because I'm not married, but God gave me grace through it. And he blessed it. It reminded me of Hagar and Sarah because Ishmael was birthed prematurely out of something that God didn't orchestrate. But regardless of it, Hagar ran because the pain that Sarah put on her because of what she carried. But God found Hagar. He heard her cry and he sent her back and assured her, you will surely be blessed. You and your offspring will be blessed. Just push through it. Get through it. Bear this child. Because even though this wasn't the plan, I'm going to bless it. And when I look at that story, I'm just like, whew. God is so good. He's so gracious. He's so forgiving. He's so just and understanding, but he's still God. And I know that had I decided to abort my son, God would have got me through that. But I really think that, honestly, if I had done that, it would have killed me for the rest of my life until I died. Because I would have never been able to let that go. And that's what the enemy intended for me. He intended me to be sought in what I felt like was what was the hardest thing I could have ever done. Look at how many people you know that may have. I know people that have done it, and it tears them up. And some people are like, I have peace with it. But other people have, have bitterness about it. And through that, you just got to remind them that, I understand. I've been there. Who am I to say anything about you? Because that was me at one point. I've gone with somebody to get one. Do I believe in it? No. But I can't judge you. You have to, I can tell you what's right and I can talk you through it. But at the end of the day, it's your life. You got to do what's best for you. And whatever you felt to do, we all have to answer to God on our own. I can talk you out of it, or I can sit with you through it. And it's not my job to condemn you for whatever the choices you choose to make. So, I had to remember that I'm not God. God is our judge. Do we, judge and correction? Yes. You tell a person, the truth, But at the end of the day, we have the choices of our lives. We can take God's choice or we can take our own choice. And at that moment, I was really leaning on taking my own choice because I'm like, God, I can't do this. But to this day, I look at my son and I'm thankful because I remember what it was like carrying him and how hard that was on me. How hard it was even when he came, I looked at him as regret. I looked at him as being ashamed, I hated myself, and sometimes that affected how I showed up in the day. Some days I just didn't want to be a mother. Some days I didn't want to live. I struggled through that. And a lot of people don't even know that. Like I struggle really bad through it. But today I'm grateful. I look at my son and I'm grateful to be his mom. I'm grateful that God chose me and God chose him to be for me, And even, through the things that me and his dad go through, I always remind myself that at the end of the day, God allowed him to be his father for a reason. So I have to steward being his mother as best way as I know how. That's it. That's all. So you have to really get in position to be ready to push. Pray until something happens. Push it out. Push it through. Continue to stand in your faith and lean in on God because he will carry you through it as you carry what it is he's giving you. I talked about this not too long ago about he will help you carry it well because it's heavy. It's not small. And you may be birthing multiple things at one time. It may all come to you in abundance and you're not even expecting it. Some of you are birthing stuff and you don't even know you're birthing. You don't even know that you're in your pregnancy phase of whatever God is doing in your life. You don't even know yet. You haven't found out yet what God is doing. He hasn't revealed it to you. But if you keep going and you stick it out, you'll find out that God has been in the midst the whole time. So I want to encourage you. And I want to read from James 1, 2 through 3. To just give you some encouragement. Because we need it, right? So testing of your faith is what James 1 is about. So it says in James 1:2, it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." And if we drop down to James 4, it says, "And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Let it have its full effect. That means see this thing out. Carry it through the 9 months or whatever, how long you're supposed to carry it. And carry it well. And I also want you to be encouraged. Be encouraged. I remember a couple years ago when God called me to do something, to reach out to somebody that I hadn't talked to in years. And I was kind of intimidated. I was intimidated by it because I didn't know how this person was going to take me reaching out to them. And before I did it, I just sat and prayed. I'm like, "Lord, is this what you want me to do? Are you sure? You sure? You sure? I want to make sure it's you and it's not me, because I can't go out here looking crazy. Like, I can't, because I don't know how this person going to take this. I don't know. I was scared. I was afraid. I was anxious about something so simple and reaching out to somebody. But when you haven't talked to a person in a long time, and you may not know how that person is going to perceive it, but I didn't know how this person was going to take it. So I got really anxious, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't do this. This is awkward. Like, I haven't talked to this person in years. But I ended up praying before I did it, because I was like, "Lord, I'm not going to move until I hear a word from you. I'm not going to move until I get your confirmation that this is what you want me to do." And so I forgot how it came to me. I think it literally popped up on my phone, the Bible verse, Joshua 1:9. It says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you everywhere you go." He's with you everywhere, not some places, everywhere. In everything that he calls you to, he's with you. Even when it intimidates you, he's with you. Even when you're pushing this thing out, carrying it for as long as you carry it, he's with you. So I was just like, oh my God. And after I saw that, I just prayed again to have, calmness and to be courageous and be bold to go do what God called me to do. And that's what I've been doing so far too, with just the calling that God has on my life. Because like I tell you guys, I've been getting attacks left and right. I just had to take my son to the hospital a couple days ago. The enemy, let me tell you something. The enemy will use anything to distract you, to deter you, to get you to crumble and run back to where God has called you from. I was at my peak's end, having to take my son over to the hospital the other day. I thought I was going to lose it all. On the way there, I was just breaking down, crying, because I'm just like, why does this keep happening? The very things that I prayed that wouldn't happen has been happening. My son has been in the hospital just as much as I've been when I was pregnant with him. With this thing, with that thing, with this thing, with that thing. And it's not things where I can just sit it out and wait it out, because they're affecting his breathing, they're affecting his health. It's just a lot of different things. So it's just like, it gets intimidated. But the enemy, he'll use anything closest to you to try to get you to fumble, to get you to forfeit the calling that God has on you, to get you to curse God and say, you know what, God, I can't do this. I don't care how blessed it is on the other side. I can't make it over there. That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to give up. He wants you to quit. I don't care how bad it looks. I don't care what hour you feel like you're in. I don't care what your bank account looks like. I don't care what your circle looks like. I don't care what your thought process seems like. God is a good God, and he's going to be continuously in the midst all of your days. Psalms 91:11 says he will send his angels to protect you. He will command them to protect you from the hand of the enemy. Just like with the Hebrew boys, he'll get in that fiery furnace with you, and you will come out untouched, unharmed. But you got to get in there. And I know that's scary. I know it's intimidating, because you got to get in there knowing that you're going to be okay. I had a call with my pastor at my church the other day. We did a prayer call, and he was telling me, he said that anytime somebody takes a leap of faith and does what it is that God tells them to do, big or small, he tells them to just remember. And I've been saying this the whole time. The enemy ain't happy about you and me deciding to follow Christ. He's not happy about that. He'd be happy if we followed Christ and we were lukewarm. But we know that God doesn't like lukewarm, because he said he spits us out. It makes him sick. Like, oh, no, you didn't. You either hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm. You can't be both. So what displeases God pleases the enemy. Coincidental? God doesn't like us as lukewarm Christians, but the enemy does. See the coincidence there? Because when you're lukewarm, you're hot and cold. You're doing one thing and doing the other thing. You're doing right and wrong. And God is not a God of right and wrong. He's a God of right or wrong. Either you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong. Make a choice. But don't be switching up. Don't be in the middle. God doesn't like that. It says he chews us up and spit us out, basically. He spits us out. He vomits. Can you imagine God thinking about you saying, ugh, gross? Can you imagine? I don't want to. But the enemy wants you to forfeit, because he can't get you to knowingly do it. He wants you to self-sabotage. He wants you to start thinking about, oh, I've been here before. God didn't bring me out the way I thought he did. He was going to. I've been here before. I don't want to lose it all again. I've been here before. This looks like what was from my past, but God says, I'm doing a new thing. I'm not showing up for you the way I did a couple years ago in this situation. I'm showing up better. I'm doing unthinkably good things in your life. Not giving you enough to get you through the year, but I'm giving you enough to sustain through the day. You have everything you need each and every day. Just continue to follow me. So let me be your encourager to keep following the path that God has led you to. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how hard the enemy is coming up against you. My thing is this: a robber doesn't go to a house to steal anything from an empty house. The thief ain't gonna come steal something where it ain't nothing to steal. You're a precious jewel. You're a diamond. You know how much diamonds are worth? The enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy you because you're precious. You're valuable. Don't forfeit. Don't abort the mission before you push. Keep pushing through it. Pray. Get around some people that can pray for you. Even if you can't find the words, just cry out to God, because he hears. God sees. He sits up and he sees each and everything that we go through. He's not a God where he slumbers. He watches over the night and the day. You're going to make it and you're going to be okay. And lastly, I want to leave you with Psalms 121. The whole thing, my help comes from the Lord. This is the staple that I live by. I literally have it. And before I left my job, I kept seeing 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. I kept remembering, because I kept saying, God, you are my provider. I don't have to worry about a corporate job, because you're going to supply each and every need that I have. My help comes from the Lord. I have to keep saying, I say it every day, regardless of what it looks like right now. God's going to come through for me. So it says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by the day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Do you understand what the word forevermore means? Soak that in your heart. Soak that in your mind. When you start to doubt, when the enemy starts talking to you, you talk back and you let him know these very words. Don't succumb to fear and abort it too soon. Because what I learned is, even though it's hard to carry it, when you deliver that thing, it's going to be worth it. And it still may not even look like what you thought when you pushed it out. But in the end, you're going to be able to stand on the outside of that thing and look back at it and say, you know what, God, I see what you did there. Because I do that every single day when I look at my son. I went from being reminded of the unexpected of his birthing to rejoicing for his birthday. I'm thankful for my son each and every day because of the life that I have. I'm able to become a new person. I'm a mother first. And I'm thankful because I submit my motherhood to God and He leads me in the way that I should go when it comes to raising him. I do the best I can. I'm not perfect. But I get in there and I try. And it's hard because I remember nights where I would sit up and cry about just life in general, how hard life is for me, let alone having to bury that on a child, an innocent child. Thinking I can't provide a life of good life for my son. I can't do this. I can't be his mother. But look at me, 3 years in it. I'm here. I'm showing up every day. You nurture that thing until it grows and it sprouts. And even when it's grown and it's harvest, you water it. You push it out. So I am super excited for you and me because you're in your final days of getting ready to finish labor to delivery. It's coming to an end. It's turning in your favor. Rejoice and thank God in advance for what He's doing in your life. And I don't know what that looks like for you, but you know what you're going through. You know what God is doing and what He's spoken to you. So hold on to that. I pray that you have a blessed and prosperous day. Continue to seek the Lord and ask Him for guidance and instructions on what it is you need to be doing to be prepared to birth it, because you don't know when that time is going to be here. As always, remain grateful because it keeps you gorgeous. I will see you guys on the next episode. Bye.